Thank you all for coming on this beautiful Sunday, second or third day of summer. My name is Ida Vernon. I am a spokesperson and a member of Queens Residents United, which is a grassroots neighborhood organization formed to educate people about what's going on with this plan by the mayor to build a high-rise jail right behind us, and to inform people about why we oppose it, and to have meaningful dialogue with those who may have opposite views to ourselves. So I hope whoever's here who may disagree, let's have a dialogue, but let's keep it civil and respectful. First, I just want to give a little background. Many of you may have attended community board hearings, town hall meetings,
Can I get in the back?
and have otherwise heard about the plan to close Rikers Island and to build high-rise jails in residential communities in 4 of the 5 boroughs. This plan was formulated in secret. It did not have any input from any of the neighborhoods in Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, or Manhattan, where the jails would be situated. The mayor and his allies who are pushing this plan say that this is absolutely necessary to achieve criminal justice reform, and I will briefly tell you why I don't think it is, and so will the other speakers. And this movement that we have, a community movement, is not against criminal justice reform. Of course, favors the fair and humane treatment of anyone who goes through the criminal justice system. And I personally agree that many people who wind up encountering the criminal justice system don't have to be in jail. Only the people who commit the most violent, serious crimes. But this has been rushed through because the mayor was lobbied by special interests. As we now know, the mayor has decided to run for president, so this may be something on his checklist to placate certain constituencies. There are billions of dollars at stake because the quote we hear from the mayor is $10 to $11 billion, or from his representatives, to build these 4 jails. That's a lot of money that is going to be taken away from our schools. We have overcrowded schools in Kew Gardens, Briarwood, Forest Hills, the South Bronx, Chinatown, and downtown Brooklyn. We have homeless children in those schools. We have people who are homeless and mentally ill and needy on our streets. We have decaying, as we know, very decaying NYCHA housing, and we have many challenges with our public transportation system. Yet these are priorities that I believe have greater moral imperatives, which is the phrase that the mayor and the Littman Commission used to label why not only do we have to close Rikers, but why we have to build high-rise jails. So where is all this money going to come from? It's right now we're looking at budget cuts to schools and many essential services, but we have billions to build jails, and the total may be much more if it's financed. So people, we who are in the communities who oppose this, oppose the mayor's rush to force this on communities, because don't be fooled. It is a rush. They've already gone to 2 of the 4 stages needed for the city to approve this. July 10th, which is coming up soon, the City Planning Commission has a hearing, and then in August probably it will go to City Council, which has the final say. So before you leave, we're all going to tell you what we'd like you to do, which among other things is get in touch with City Council members, in particular Karen Koslowitz, that represents Kew Gardens and Forest Hill, and basically served up those communities. Rory Lansman represents Briarwood. He's full all the way for this plan. There's been no discussion of alternative sites, maybe more than 1 jail, smaller jails, or exactly what kind of programming. So I've heard a lot of presentations by the mayor's representatives. I've been at a meeting with the mayor, with community activists, and he was extremely dismissive and frankly arrogant of our concerns. He says, we'll get used to it. So this is about how we can achieve criminal justice reform, which I think is, first of all, waiting till certain changes in the bail law and other criminal justice laws come into effect in January, and then we see what size jail we need, and we really set meaningful priorities with everyone's input. So I thank you for coming. Our first speaker is Sylvia Hack. Sylvia is a longtime resident of Kew Gardens She is a member of Community Board 9, which covers Kew Gardens, and she is co-chair of the Land Use Committee that held hearings on the mayor's plan. Sylvia?
Hello, everybody. I think I have laid out a lot of the facts there, basically. And well, apparently people can't hear in the back, so I'm trying to speak loudly. You know, Ida has pointed out that it says that this, what should happen.
People are having trouble hearing.
Oh.
Can we make the volume louder?
I don't think it goes any louder.
Okay.
That's why I'm trying to hold it up.
Okay, all right. So there's this great concern for being fair, humane, and just. And obviously we believe people should be fair, humane, and just. But communities also deserve to be treated with fairness, humaneness, and justice. And right now,
Absolutely.
aside from what could be, I mean, Ida has talked about 11 billion, but if this is financed the way a lot of things are financed over a period of 30 years, you, the New York City taxpayer, will be paying $30 billion, while we have over 63,000 homeless people in this city. And we have been fighting, particularly the community board, and if you are ever interested, we put out an extensive resolution, which is now part of the City Planning Commission record. But one of the things that we need to do is to ask you to do things, because it's not enough for some of us, even for the community boards that have voted, all of them, in opposition, and 4 of those boards in the unanimous. I will tell you, I've sat on the planning board for a long time, and it is so rare to have a unanimous vote about anything, let alone a major land use issue. But I would like to ask you, if you have a phone on you, to take this phone that you've got and take a picture of what you see around you, the people who are here to protest. Because we're going to ask you to take that picture and email it to 3 people. Corey Johnson, who is the speaker for the City Council, Karen Koslowitz, our councilwoman, and to Scott Stringer. Now, Mr. Johnson and Scott Stringer both have a great interest in being the mayor of this city. And we want them to understand that we have very long memories, and we're going to be watching when they start to be active in terms of becoming mayor. Because so far, we have not received the kind of support that a community, any community, deserves, particularly one that is so united. And as I say, we had 5 boards voting, and every one of them voted against. So we hope you'll look at the resolution, which is 8 pages long, but lays out almost most of the important facts. And we are now in this land use process, which we thought would not start the money flowing until it was finished. And right now, they are past $150 million that is being expended without the approval of the City Council. Thank you. But please use your phones to take a picture of what you see. And then we have slips for the email addresses, and we will give them to you for you to send these photographs with your comments to these 3 really important people. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. And I'm going to ask every speaker to speak loud because sometimes the sound isn't that great. So as you can see, we have a very diverse community of people here who oppose this. So the people slap all sorts of labels on us to shut us up, but we're not going to shut up. Our next speaker is Dominic Stone. Dominic is also a longtime resident of Kew Gardens. He is president of the Kew Gardens Civic Association, and he, along with Sylvia, have been very much involved in organizing education in opposition to this plan. So, Dominic?
I'm going to repeat what a lot of other people have said simply because it bears it. We last had a rally here on April 13th, and a lot has happened since then. The 5 community boards in the 4 boroughs affected by these jails
Closer to the mic.
Okay, have all rejected the proposal.
There you go.
Yay!
Right there.
4 of them unanimously.
I got it.
2 of the 4 borough presidents have voted against the proposal. In hearings held before Community Board 9 at Queens Borough President's office, there was overwhelming opposition to these jails, and not just from the communities. People who don't live in the communities, but who are passionately committed to closing Rikers and to criminal justice reform, they all think these jails are a bad idea. So who wants the jails? Near as I can figure out, mainly the mayor and a small little inner circle of his appointees and hirelings who depend on the pleasure of the mayor for their jobs. People like the deputy mayor for the Officer of Criminal Justice, the Commissioner of Corrections, the members of the Community Affairs Unit who have spent months trying to convince us that these jails are a good idea. Their names don't matter. If they all left tomorrow, they would be replaced by other ciphers whose main qualification is the ability to say, yes, Mr. Mayor, to any nonsense that comes out of de Blasio's mouth.
Absolutely.
We are going through a land use review process to determine if these jails should be built, but the mayor is treating it as a done deal. Sylvia has already mentioned some of these things. He has posted 2 job openings to supervise the borough-based jails, each carrying a salary in excess of $100,000. He has posted a request for a proposal to engineering firms to participate in preliminary designs, a contract worth over $150 million. He has proposed $8.7 billion in the budget to close Rikers. All of this before the process is complete. Look at that $8.7 billion figure. That's just to close Rikers. There is no estimate as to what it would cost to build the jails. 10 billion, 11, 20, 30. Take a guess. Your guess is as good as his. So, you know, it's a nice game to play. The only thing that is certain is that this is not money available for real moral imperatives. Improving city housing, improving the schools, improving the subways. And whatever the mayor comes up with is bound to be wrong. This is an administration that builds the most expensive subway system in the world to cover 20 blocks and paid $2 million for a restroom in a city park. On January 1st, 2022, the mayor and most of his supporters will be gone. Who will be left? The architectural, engineering, and construction firms who will get fat on these contracts, and you and me who will be left to pay for them with increased property or income or sales tax or any combination of the above, or all of them. So, the City Council will most likely vote on this before the end of the summer. Let every council member know that this proposal is fiscally irresponsible, even if they are not your member. Only 4 districts will be affected, but all 51 will have to pay for them. My own opinion is that most City Council members know this is a bad idea and a waste of money, but they are afraid. They're afraid of being called insensitive to the need for reform, of being called racist and privileged, and of being, quote, on the wrong side of history, unquote, whatever that means. They have to be afraid of you, and I don't think they are yet. Let them know how you feel. Many of them are term limited and will be coming to you for your vote for some other elected office. Turn them away if they vote against you. They should never hold elected office in New York City again. That's my opinion.
Yes, sir.
They must realize there is a downside to ignoring their constituents. As Sylvia mentioned, Corey Johnson and Scott Stringer want to be mayor. Ask them where they stand. If they stand on the wrong side, turn them away. Have long memories come election day. Hold grudges if necessary. But don't ever let any of these people ever again get to an elected office where they can do this to us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic.
Hell no, de Blasio!
Hell no, de Blasio!
Hell no, de Blasio! Hell no, de Blasio! Hell no, de Blasio! Hell no, de Blasio!
Okay.
Hell no, de Blasio!
Save it. Our next speaker is Nancy Kong. Nancy is a founder and spokesperson of Boroughs United. She is a leader in the resistance in Manhattan, in Chinatown, to the proposed borough-based jail the mayor wants built there, which would be even taller by 10 stories than what he wants to build here. And Nancy is amazing. She's in a wheelchair, but she came all the way from Chinatown to speak. That's how important this is. Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here, and this is why it's so important. I just wanted to reiterate, I am a co-founder for Neighbors United Below Canal, our sister Manhattan coalition against this jails, and as well as Boroughs United. Boroughs United is a coalition of thousands of residents and small business owners, people who are directly impacted by the mayor's jail plan that have not been engaged at all. And for all of us to come together is something that is incredibly significant. We're here from Tribeca, Chinatown, Kew Gardens, not only just Kew Gardens, but Mott Haven, as well as Borum Hill, to really bring
Forest Hills.
Briarwood,
Kew Gardens, Kew Garden Hills.
as And that's why it's so incredibly important. It is not one neighborhood or one community or one area that is impacted. We're all impacted. But we are here to bring light to the Mayor de Blasio's regressive and destructive jail plan for over $11 billion. We've known since the beginning that the mayor and Corey Johnson's ULURP process, 4 significant sites bundled into one ULURP process, is a sham process. We knew since the beginning that the city never engaged with any of our communities on site selection, or that the NACs, the Neighborhood Advisory Committee meetings that we all attended, are sham processes. They've never addressed any of the recommendations that we came out from these meetings. We knew since the beginning that these jails were out of scale, were dangerous, and poorly designed. We knew since the beginning that the mayor's moral imperative to close Rikers is based on logistics and not on real criminal justice reforms. We now know that the demolition and construction, the silica and airborne particles that will go on for over 10 years will cause our seniors and children cancer and asthma. But the city does not talk about that. We now know that the assumptions that Dana Kaplan used are outdated and flawed. We now know that the deals are being made by our city council members, Margaret Chin in Chinatown, in exchange for these jails. We now know that the Littman Commission and the city have a PR machine, Global Strategies, pushing out a narrative that is false and divisive, playing the race card. In Chinatown, we have 3 jails. We already host 1,600 detainees. That's 34%. How can anyone call us NIMBY? Mayor de Blasio has taken no accountability for the abuses, for the deaths, for the inhumane conditions at Rikers Island or in any New York City jails. Yet he stands on the progressive platform, running for the President of the United States. Exactly. It is a joke.
What a sham.
It is a sham. It is.
Funny.
Everyone says that this is a done deal. Well, clearly they haven't met all of us, have they?
No.
All 4 community boards, with Community Board 9 leading the charge, all voted no to the... And Community Board 8, so 5 have voted no to the mayor's jail plans. 2 of our 4 borough presidents, Ruben Diaz Jr. and Melinda Katz, have come out to say no. Again with Queens leading the charge. I hope Eric Adams and Gail Brewer are listening and learning and seeing what real courage and leadership looks like. Have this as a warning to all the electeds who do not have the courage right now to say, this is not the right solution. Let's come up with better options and alternatives. To the 2 borough presidents and all the city council members, we will remember. We will be at the polls. Either do your job now or you will be out of a job. Queens, Kew Gardens, stay strong. We will defeat this because it is a regressive and bad plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy. Our next speaker is an activist from the Bronx. She's a leader in the opposition in the Mott Haven community in the South Bronx. She is also president and CEO of Diego Beekman, which is an affordable housing complex in that community, which, as she will tell you, for years has been beset by crime, drugs, poverty, and violence, and now they want to put a high-rise jail there. Arlene.
Hello, everyone. I also chaired the Land Use Committee of Community Board 1, and as they said, we unanimously voted no when we first heard about it. We took a resolution against the jail in the beginning, and we took a resolution of 26-0 when our community board voted. Let me just say this, I'm from the Bronx. And I want to hear some noise.
That's right.
Let them hear you. Not just hear you, fear you.
Absolutely.
Stop this jail plan. 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 This plan puts all of New York City at risk. It is a bad plan. We need the city council to fear us. Don't you forget, they are betraying us.
Absolutely.
It is at the heart of our democracy. Now, either we are a democracy and our representatives will represent us, or what we have is tyranny. We have taxation without any representation in the city of New York. No taxation. Don't take not 1 cent of our taxpayers' dollars for this plan. In my neighborhood, we have the highest concentration of NYCHA housing other than Brooklyn, 22. And those residents in those neighborhoods have been living in a humanitarian crisis. Hear me, a humanitarian crisis. And de Blasio and Cuomo were at one point HUD secretaries, right?
Unbelievable.
And up until now, nothing. People's children are dying from lead poisoning and from their living conditionings. You have in the county of the Bronx, in my district, where kids can't even get a proper education because the school system has collapsed there and not educating the children. My neighborhood was entrenched in a drug cartel. It is in the midst of an opioid crisis, and their only response is a jail? Really? We worked for 22 years under successive borough presidents, starting with Ferreira and ending with Ruben Diaz. And for 22 years, we charted a course to bring the Bronx back. Back from its past of drugs, crime, and abandoned vacant lots. And now, downtown interests, real estate interests, nonprofit interests have sold their plan to the detriment of that community, stealing the wealth of that community, and they will go off with hundreds of millions of dollars at the expense of that neighborhood. It's wrong.
Shameful.
It's wrong in all of the boroughs. That's right. This is shameful. And what I want to leave you with today, if I don't leave you with anything else, don't you take this. Don't you fall for this. For each and every person, top and bottom, that votes for this plan, that supports this plan, vote them out. 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 Now, one last thing I'm going to tell you got to do, right? When you leave here tonight, get on Facebook,
That's right.
Instagram, Twitter, else. Call everybody you know. Right? It doesn't have to be here in just New York City. Tell everybody you know. Touch somebody.
Everyone.
And start bombarding the city council. Tell Corey Johnson you will not be the mayor of New York City if under your leadership this type of corruption is allowed to stand.
Absolutely.
Allowed to stand. We need Bill de Blasio, who, as far as I'm concerned, abandoned his job.
That's right, he did. That's right, he did.
To come back here and fix this.
Fix
Fix
it!
this.
Fix this.
End this. End this. End this. End this.
No jail in Queens. No jail in Queens. No jail in Queens.
Taxation without representation.
Right. And here's the other thing. Go to nojailsdeblasio.com and sign petitions. If there are other petitions out there, organizations need to announce them and spread the word. Thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
I love you guys. And remember, together, we will never be defeated. Stand strong.
Stand strong. Within you.
Also tell them that we found that lawsuit.
Arlene wants me, very important. Thank you very much. The Bronx filed a lawsuit against the city, the mayor's the Department of Corrections, which is the mayor, and the City Planning Commission, which is also controlled by the mayor, to reverse the certification by the City Planning Council, because that's what kicked this all off. Okay, so they are out there really fighting. We're all in the streets, they're in the streets, and now they're in the courts too.
Correct.
And maybe some of us also will see them in court. Okay. Our next speaker is Lynn Ellsworth. She's the founding member of Human Scale New York City. Lynn is a leading activist who opposes turning over the city to big real estate interests. So she will discuss that aspect. And she also has a background in juvenile justice. Lynn.
So I'm Lynn Ellsworth. I'm chair of the Alliance for a Human Scale City. That's a nonprofit organization that serves as a network for community organizations and activists across all 5 boroughs. We advocate for a human scale build out of our city, neighborhood livability, and democratic control of our built environment. And speaking of the last, our goal these days is to weaken the death grip that real estate interests have on our city government. So please go to our website at Human Scale NYC, sign our petition and our pledge to not support any candidates who take real estate money. Now, Human Scale NYC, oops, have I lost this? No. Human Scale NYC has made our position very clear on the jails with 7 points. Oh, is this better? Okay. So point 1, which some of you have in our handout, is that it is fiscally irresponsible to spend $11 billion on new jails while dismissing and ignoring the cheaper options of renovating the buildings on Rikers, as well as expanding pedestrian and ferry access to the island. Number 2, paying developers to build, oops, we have a, I'll wait till they pass. Number 2, paying developers to build new tower jails diverts money away from the more important criminal justice reforms of case sentencing, case processing, bail, pretrial diversion, and community-based programming. Building new jails is ethically irresponsible. Number 3, the ULURP process and the neighborhood councils have been a Potemkin charade. DCP's refusal to modify in any way the jail plans and its decision to proceed with hiring design-build managers before ULURP is even over show us again how DCP sees the jails as a done deal and ULURP as an irrelevant pro forma. We should be calling DCP to task on this and demanding that our politicians fix the land use process while they fix this broken jail system. Number 4, no community anymore can get a fair hearing at this particular city planning commission. Every single one of the 13 appointed commissioners is affiliated with the real estate industry or dependent upon it. Only 2 have degrees in urban planning. Hearings there have become a kangaroo court within a rigged game in which they steamroller over us with their ill-wrought plans and fake advisory groups. There should be a moratorium on all text amendments until this situation is rectified. Number 5. The arguments for the necessity of new jails is based on seriously questionable ideas both about architecture and the kind of service provision that detainees require. And I speak about that from a point of view of some professional competence. I spent 5 years with the Eckerd Family Foundation working as their strategy advisor for juvenile justice reform nationwide. And I know what works to help kids in the criminal justice system, and jails is not one of them. Number 6, I think many of you ask, well, if all this is so obvious, why is it still happening? And I think it's because, behind it, we have a real estate deal going on. There are 2 kinds of deals. One is for the future disposition of Rikers, which I notice the mayor has been very shady about. And number 2 is who's going to get the build contracts? Who's going to get the $11 billion it takes to build these jails?
Dirty money.
Just contributors.
Dirty money. Dirty money. Dirty money.
I think that
Dirty money.
I think you should look to the future about what's really going to happen to some of these jails, particularly the Manhattan-based one. There's a fine historic building at Central Park North that is now part of the jail complex. It is being sold. It's an historic building. It's being sold to turn into luxury condos. So what's going to happen when they reduce the detainee population and they have a giant jail tower in the middle of Manhattan? It will become luxury condos. I think we know that.
Well, if Ignacio would like to have all the jail for Rikers Island, they can construct it in front of his house.
That's right, in front of his house. The last point is that the criminal justice reform initiative that many people sought has really been taken over by the real estate industrial complex.
Absolutely.
It has become impossible to have an intelligent conversation about genuine policy reform due to the real estate nature of what's happening. For all these reasons, Human Scale has advocated that all electeds oppose the building of new jails. And I urge you all, as everyone else has here, that those who will be running for office, we need to remember how they voted on the jails. Thank you.
Hold them accountable.
Thank you, Lynn. Lynn knows a lot more than the mayor and the people who want to build this jail. Obviously. Our next speaker is Richard Hellenbrecht. He is the Executive Vice President of the Queens Civic Congress. Richard?
Good afternoon. Rich Hellenbrecht, Executive Vice President, Queens Civic Congress. I'm very pleased to represent a coalition of community-wide or borough-wide civic associations and community organizations throughout the borough. We adamantly oppose the closing of Rikers Island. We think that Rikers Island is the perfect place to have this one facility that we need support facilities elsewhere, but we need one facility for all of these folks that are waiting trial and are incarcerated. It makes perfect sense to be there. We don't know what happened to communications and what happened to community input that was supposedly part of our government. We've worked hard for many, many years to make sure that community input was here, and it's totally absent in this case. There is no community input. We're very mad and very aggravated that we're even here today in the hot sun having to talk about this. It's been said that there'll be fewer number of cells that will leave about 3,000 people on the street that should be in jail. That increases homelessness, increases crime on the street, and we're very, very concerned about that. We stand very closely with our friends over here in Kew Gardens and Kew Gardens Hills and Richmond Hill and all of the other local communities here in Queens, Rego Park, and with our friends in my home borough, the Bronx, originally, and in Brooklyn and Manhattan to fight this. We really have to stay on top of this. It's our job to get to our elected officials and make sure that they understand the ramifications of this and what it's going to mean to them.
Yes, sir.
This could kill our communities, and this could kill their future. I can't imagine looking over that hill over there and seeing a large building which is a jail. I don't believe that vertical jails make any sense whatsoever. To move people logistically within jails, within a building, just doesn't make any sense. Rikers Island is there, it works. Start to take down some of the old buildings, plan it properly, phase it in,
Yes, sir.
get it done.
Yes,
Start
sir.
now.
Yes, sir.
If somebody asks,
Go right on.
Thank you,
somebody
Rich.
asks for the community to move this jail here,
Right. Now
who asked them?
there are people who are against the borough-based plan who still think Rikers should be closed. The point is, we shouldn't have high-rise jails in residential neighborhoods like this, rammed
100%.
down our throats.
Residential.
And criminal justice reform means changing the culture, not moving the location.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What do we need to do next?
Well, go and pick it
Okay,
up from
we
the
need, we
book.
need to keep up the pressure. You know, if we have other rallies like this, we need even more people to turn out. We need people to call Karen Kozlowitz, people who live in Kew Gardens and Forest Hills. I don't know that.
Email addresses.
Okay. Yeah, we are going to pass out email addresses. Also, it's been suggested Corey Johnson, who's the speaker, the most powerful person in the city council. He needs to be made aware of our concerns and that we're out here. So if you're out there, Corey Johnson and the rest of the city council, I hope you're listening. And I hope you're listening very clearly and you think very carefully before you and other members of the council pass the plan as the mayor is proposing. I think that's